Our agenda today includes welcome remarks and an opening lead by Gina Frater-Cangeli, followed by our startups featured going down alphabetically: ChainGuard, Gravity, Stack1, Thread AI, and Vocify. But before we bring our first startup on stage, I want to hand over the mic to our executive sponsor to officially kick things off. Please welcome Gina Frater-Cangeli, Managing Director for North America and also the GSI leader for Google Cloud. Gina, over to you.
Thanks so much, Vikram, and thanks so much, team, for your hard work making these sessions happen. Our goal in the partner ecosystem is to constantly be here to support our partners and whatever that support looks like. I'm actually in a Google facility, so it's great that I apparently chose the one conference room with a weak signal. So sorry if my face freezes, but I'll keep talking. No, but this is such a critical piece. As I talk to the executives at our big GSIs, at our largest partners, the landscape is changing so rapidly. We are all in this together to help each other figure out where's the puck going and how do we get there and how do we help our customers get there? How do we help our customers select the best technology, select the best technical solutions moving forward? And so we as Google are your partners right in there along with you on that journey. And we are making a commitment to you to continuously be looking at the startup ecosystem and bringing those to your attention. Firms that you should think about bringing to your other customers, firms that you should be considering using their products internally at your own company, and firms you should be considering for acquisition as you look to 10x your revenue in your business. So I think we've curated a phenomenal list of partners. And one of the things I love about Google is we've got capital G, we've got Google Ventures. I'm constantly talking to the executives and the investors in both of those groups to see what's coming around the pipe and which other partners and new rising stars. So this list is, while only 5 companies, heavily curated from the hundreds that we're looking at. And we will continue to do that for you on a quarterly basis here as we head into the new year. So please let us know what you think of this session. We're going to move really quickly through these. And I've personally talked to almost every single one of these CEOs, and I'm just really delighted to give you the opportunity to get to know these firms too. So thank you everyone for joining. And with that, I will hand it back to Vikram to get us kicked off with the first partner. Did we lose Vikram?
You're on mute, Vikram.
Oh, sorry. So let's dive into it. I would like to welcome our first featured startup to the virtual stage. Over to you, Ben from ChainGuard.
Hello, Ben Prati, lead our cloud partnerships here at ChainGuard. I've been working closely with Google for a while now. A little bit about ChainGuard. So been around for a few years now. We were founded by a handful of engineers that are former Google employees. And they created some core products in the open source community, including Kubernetes, DistroList, Sigstore, and Salsa. We've raised about almost $900 million with key investors being Sequoia, Redpoint, Lightspeed, and Kleiner, and approaching right around $100 million in annual recurring revenue. One of the big differentiators from ChainGuard is we are really an enterprise-first type of company. We started selling to large enterprise customers first. As you can see, some of our customer logos there with MasterCard, Ford, Cisco, Prudential. We've actually worked our way down into more of the VC-backed companies as well. So what is the problem we are solving? So today we see that open source software makes about 90% of the code that organizations use today. But the problem they see is that open code is actually not secure by really any default. It's full of vulnerabilities and it opens up to a large attack surface. So what ChainGuard has done is we have basically taken open source software and we have taken that and rebuilt that, hardened that, and made it production-ready builds on our own distribution. So organizations can build from a secure source that they can trust and eliminate the risk that they have. So some of our key differentiators here is kind of the overall breadth of our product offering today. So we started out with container images. We have about 2,200 vulnerability-free container images, and that includes both standard as well as FIPS variants of those images. We've expanded on to our libraries product, which is a malware-resistant library product where we're rebuilding entire library ecosystems to be malware resistant and more secure for our customers. We have CI/CD workflows, agent skills, and OS packages, all being deployed by our large enterprise customers today. One of the key differentiators here is that like we actually have a true team of industry experts, not only in open source and open source maintainers and security engineer practitioners, but also, you know, teams that have built out distributions in the past and decided to kind of build ChainGuard differently from the ground up. So we own all the dependencies built from source, makes our product more secure. So why would GSI partners want to kind of go ahead and partner with us? So our main target industries are going to be large ISVs, financial services, and healthcare. We have key customers in each of these industries, and we continue to sell in those use cases every day. So what we see is that every customer is either modernizing or migrating, and that's where ChainGuard can come in and help. So any of your large customers that are modernizing, moving containers, or migrating to the cloud, ChainGuard is the key component there. They can start fresh on ChainGuard images, not have to worry about the vulnerabilities that they have to patch or remediate. It actually accelerates those modernization migration projects. When we look at services pull-through, we see a lot of this in kind of expanding the transformation projects, modernization, and kind of compliance readiness. Compliance is big for us. We see a lot of our customers coming to us for specific frameworks like FedRAMP, PCI, CMMC. And so companies that come to us for FedRAMP, there are very specific requirements in FedRAMP that require, you know, hardened CVE-free images and SLAs around that. So ChainGuard images are a perfect drop-in for that. We see large customers of ours like Snowflake. When they came to us, they've been working on FedRAMP projects for years. They bought a handful of ChainGuard images, deployed those, see image or vulnerabilities drop from, you know, thousands down to 0, allows them to accelerate their time to audit and get through into those federal customers faster. So that's kind of the high level, you know, overview of who we are in ChainGuard. I'd love to answer any questions for you guys.
Thank you, Ben. As we come along, some of the questions that we had, like very clearly, I think many of these SI leaders on this call, they are driving a large-scale cloud modernization. And you mentioned FedRAMP compliance readiness project. How can partnering with the ChainGuard help deliver kind of secure by default zero CVE artifacts directly to increase our partner consulting footprint as well as accelerate those massive compliance engagements?
Yeah, so I think, you know, what we see here is that, you know, when customers are to come in, adopt our images for one of these, you know, they're going to have to come in, you know, adopt our secure software here, and they're going to need to kind of redesign pipelines, embed their security goals in CI/CD, and then kind of overall modernize their application stacks. So, you know, this is where the teams come in. They help with guidance on, you know, how do we do this? How are you changing kind of your motion here from how you're building, and how, you know, ChainGuard can be a secure foundation for them to start on as they begin to work on those projects. When it comes to the migration perspective, we've seen, you know, large enterprise customers here who are migrating from on-prem to the cloud, modernizing with containers, or migrating from one cloud to the other, look to start fresh on ChainGuard images. So what this does is it gives them the secure foundation to build from, where they don't have to go back, patch, remediate all those vulnerabilities. They're able to build secure, focus on, you know, building their proprietary software on top of those core images, and ultimately, you know, get to that spot of the transformation faster without having to worry about the security layer, because that's going to be handled by ChainGuard.
Thank you, Ben. Another question I had is what we are seeing, since you talked about these 3 industries out there, our clients all often stall AI deployments due to security fears and also threat of like AI-assisted attacks.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, what specific joint go-to-market motions have you seen working best with SIs and using ChainGuard as a competitive differentiator to win kind of enterprise, either DevOps transformation kind of deals?
Yeah, so I think, you know, we hear from a lot of our large customers that like writing code is no longer a problem. It's securing that code. So that's where our ChainGuard libraries product comes in, where companies can actually pull from our trusted source in our ChainGuard libraries that are secure, and they're going to be malware resistant from that perspective, because we're not pulling just from the open source, waiting for those upstream patches. We actually build all that from source, so we don't have those dependencies, and we can make sure those are secure from day one. So we just saw this happen about 2 weeks ago. There's actually an AI automated bot attack that attacked, you know, Trivy, an open source project and scanner from Aqua Security. This led to wide scale breaches here with how they were able to get, you know, token access and into a lot of those different products there. And then they're actually able to go ahead and push a lot of this out into production with a lot of these customers. So what we did is, our products here, our libraries were actually not impacted because we did not have that patch in there. We were able to, any of our customers were secure from that perspective. And that's where we're seeing a lot of interest from customers right now who are coming in and saying, hey, the open source projects are great. It's great to have this there, but a more secure version of that is what we're kind of looking for. And that's what we're able to offer a lot of customers today.
Thank you, Ben, for sharing these insights. And if you have further questions, we'll definitely get in touch with you, and really appreciate you sharing these insights. With that, we'll move to our next startup. We have Lucas, who is the founder and CEO of Gravity. And over to you, Lucas.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me here today. So our product is Orion, our company is Gravity, and Orion and Gravity are in the big news today. And different kind of Orion though. But this is also the 2-year anniversary of me leaving Google. So I previously was the head of product for data and AI at Google Cloud. I came in through the Looker acquisition. In the Looker days, I got to run the consulting arm and got to work with many of you guys before that. So I really think that software and services go hand in hand. And we see that as we are now working in multiple large companies, there's always an SI, and we can only be successful if we're helping each other there. I can bring up some examples of how that's panning out, but it looks like there's about $3 of services on every dollar spent on AI and our services, our product, which is an amazing opportunity for you. I think it really positions you also as a leader on the strategy side of how do you future-proof your business. So what does Orion do? Orion is an AI analyst. So I have the background with Looker, of course. There are big gaps. There's never enough analyst bandwidth in organizations. So we build what you couldn't quite do in the confinements of the Google, internally at Google. We built a proactive analyst that actually looks at your data, understands you as a business user, you as an organization, and looks proactively on what else needs to be surfaced to you. Now that drives a lot of database consumption, right? We are available on all major databases. That makes it quite interesting. Orion articulates the ROI of that data. It says, here's a recommendation on what to do, and here's the money you're going to save with it. Here's the additional revenue you're going to make because of it. And being able to articulate that ROI, throughout, like every time we have a check-in with a customer, is really powerful. I think it's also really interesting for the SIs we're working with to show the investment that you have made in the data into your system integrators is actually paying off here. We are integrated with Gemini Enterprise. So if you're trying to sell Gemini Enterprise, or you're already with accounts with Gemini Enterprise, Orion connects to it, of course. It can handle all the analytics tasks that are then governed and controlled. We have a really good knowledge base that allows you as a consulting partner to control how and where Orion uses context. Orion can generate context itself as well. So if you're connecting to BigQuery or Looker, it does a first draft for the customer, but then someone needs to approve it and say that's okay. Now the nice thing is it can also maintain it for you. So it can maintain that context for the customer as it learns about the business. It suggests edits to it, and you can, as an administrator or as a managed service provider, you can then approve those edits. So that really shows an enterprise readiness that resonates with large companies. So we have a couple, we didn't put them on the slides here, but we got a couple publicly traded ones. Dave out of Los Angeles, financial services firm. We got Ibotta. They're in the advertising space. So there's a couple of good logos with a few thousand active customers already in there. We got over 10 million funding. Of course, we're still early, but in this day and age, that means actually we can move really quickly. So as a customer has a request, right, we can have the feature live in a matter of hours for the customer. So that's really exciting. Yeah, what else should I mention about so the real focus that we have is helping with analyst bandwidth. So one of the things that is really interesting is federating data. So if some of the data is in BigQuery, some of it is in Looker, some of it is in Tableau, some of it on Databricks, Orion can actually federate that for you, just like a human analyst would. It can handle the CSV files, it can handle the Python for you, and then generate reports, generate dashboards that are then accessible. Maybe if we go to the next slide, a video should be playing of the product, and then I can talk a bit more about that. So of course, it can all start with a prompt. Right here, Orion suggested proactively a prompt of something that should be interesting to you as an end user, and it kicks off the analysis. Then you can select if you want a dashboard, a slide deck. It matches your company's style. It highlights what you should pay attention to. And then you can ask questions about it. You can highlight something, and Orion will tell you, in milliseconds of why did this happen and what you should think, what you should pay attention to. You can also have slide decks generated. Again, it matches your style. Now, the really important piece here is lots of AIs can do this these days, but Orion can actually lock these in. If you say this is good, and it can refresh the numbers without changing the look and feel of the slides or the dashboard week over week, day over day. And that way, the numbers are always accurate. They're logged in. The Python is logged in. The SQL is logged in. Orion just updates the numbers and the narrative in them. Here you get to the knowledge base, and that's where I think the SIs would be super impactful. And well, we're already in accounts where you create the content and Orion suggests something, but then you can approve it. And it gives a large enterprise the ability to handle context across their data services. So if you're in a Gemini Enterprise or in Slack or Google Chat, it connects right here. Oh, sorry, it looks like we're looping. But it goes right into that chat box. So if you chat in Slack, it's being routed to that chat box. If you want to pause. And that's where everything goes, right? So the context is then being enriched. And the end user experience is exactly how the data team wants that end user experience to be. A common use case is then using it as an embedded solution as well. So you could embed Orion into your product to offer embedded analytics to your customers, which is actually quite popular with like ad agencies or even in the financial services space. We have seen it where there's a B2B relationship, and embedded analytics is really beneficial. Okay, let me pause.
Thank you, Lucas. This was simply amazing. I mean, I definitely loved it. And we have been talking about kind of the services opportunity. I think even many of the Googlers have this kind of a problem on a day-to-day basis. But you did highlight something which was very interesting to me. You did mention that from a services multiplier to SI partners, you did kind of talk about like, hey, if you deploy Orion, it almost generates almost 2 to 3x pull-through in services revenue. Can you break down a little bit in terms of how SI's data practices, most of them have data practices, can capture that revenue, such as through data warehouse, the change management, BigQuery integration, and how can they bring Orion to their clients where they're facing these kind of challenges?
Yeah, there's 3 big fronts, right? Like the one, of course, that everybody needs right now is change management. How do you interact with these AI tools? How are they now your coworker, right? How can Orion, the analyst, be the one that helps every account manager prepare for their meetings with their customers, right? We want Orion to send you the prepped slide deck so you can go into the customer meeting and you're ready to go. But that requires some change management. From a strategy perspective as well, right? Like how do you future-proof your business? I love talking about that. I could do a whole session on just future-proofing your data investment. And that is something that Orion really supports you with. But the SI is crucial in setting up the data sets so they are ready for AI use cases, right? You need to have pretty clean data sets to be able to have AIs running on this. So setting up the data foundation, and then the context, the business context. So Orion connects to legacy BI tools and sucks out all this great context, right? It understands what the COO wants to look at, it understands what the head of marketing wants to see, and it writes that up for you. So that's an amazing value that you can immediately turn around and show the customer. Orion makes that then accessible to any tool you want. So if you want Claude connected to that knowledge repo, you can, which is really interesting. And then you as an SI can modify it, right? You can proofread it, make sure that's exactly how the customer wants it. That's a huge service opportunity. The context curation, Orion helps you set that up by being purpose-built for DBT extracts, for Looker extracts, right? ThoughtSpot, whatever tool you have out there. But then you curate it, you go further down and actually, feel free to turn it around and take all the credit for it. And then maintain it, right? Because I think that's the other concern that companies have. Orion helps you maintain that context over time, which is really interesting. And that's where the second part is coming in, where Orion shows the ROI to the business. Now that we show the ROI and you can show the ROI to your business, there is an interest to add other data sources. So it's like, could we add, can we add weather data to this? Can we see some demographic data? So we have seen a big increase in additional SOWs for our service partners.
Awesome. No, this is great. I mean, you talked about the last statement, which is basically, you talked about SIs talking about ROI and business impact as some of the top challenges. I mean, many of our SIs would love this because you did talk about like the autonomous 24/7 agent, which is there working for you. We have advisory partners who are working with C-level executives who would like to have these kind of reports also handy. So is there a mechanism for SIs to really white label or kind of wrap Orion into an ongoing high margin advisory services associated with these kind of strategic partners?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are available, of course, in the Google Marketplace, right? So that works, and we're really happy to pay all the partner commissions, of course, as well. But you could also white label it yourself if you want. So that's what a lot of the ad agencies are doing with Orion. You swap out the logo; it does it in the UI natively, and then you have your logo on there, right? And now you can provide that as a service to your customers as like your product. So that is certainly an option as well. Now,
Okay.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I'm out of time, and I'm German, so I'm really sensitive to time. There we go.
Thank you, Lucas, for your time. And with that, we will go to the next speaker and our next startup. And we have Romain, who's the founder and CEO of Stack One. And over to you, Romain.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for having us, and good to see you guys. I'm Roman. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called Stack One. We are building the intelligent integration layer for AI agents. As a company, we're backed by Google Ventures, and we are also backed by Workday Ventures. We've raised $24 million in total, including a Series A last year. And for myself, I used to be also at Google. I was a product lead in Google Labs. I guess the apple never falls far from the tree, as many of us here. So what do we do at Stack One? So we're solving one of the biggest problems in getting AI agents live today, which is integrations. So our customers will be typically building agents using Gemini Enterprise, ADK, LangChain, Crew AI, or even sometimes just deploying Claude or Copilot within their enterprise to automate things like their back office work, like HR, hiring, ITSM, finance automation, sales and marketing. And the biggest problem they face is connecting those agents to their SaaS platforms, complex legacy systems, and custom internal tools. And even when they do get to connect them to those systems, they still face the hurdle to get the agents to act accurately, reliably, and securely, which means that the agents get blocked and they remain a prototype. They never go into production. So if you can go to the next slide, I'll talk a bit about how Stack One solves this problem. So we are building what we call the intelligent integration layer for AI agents. We are not an orchestration layer. So we plug into frameworks like Gemini Enterprise or ADK. And we extend them and we fill the gaps of the connectivity into third-party systems. We offer out-of-the-box 200 pre-built connectors like Salesforce, Workday, Oracle, SAP, some of the most gnarly enterprise systems that customers want to automate on top of. You can connect them via MCP, A2A, or native tool calls. For example, we have a plugin native to ADK that we've released a few weeks ago. You can also use our AI connector builder to build connectors to legacy systems and custom APIs to extend connectivity beyond what we offer out of the box. And this is one of the things I'll talk about in a second of where I see the biggest opportunity for SIs. We also add on top of it an intelligent architecture that optimizes context window, accuracy, and token usage so you can build more reliable agents that are more cost efficient at scale. And you can finally build a governance and security layer at the tools level with Stack One, because we offer a governance package as well as a best-in-class prompt injection defense package called Defender that helps you prevent against attacks like prompt injection. So a good example at the bottom here, I guess the slide will be sent afterwards, and there's a couple of videos. You can see more on our website. A good example is building an employee onboarding agent. You can build it on Gemini Enterprise, or you can build it using ADK on Vertex. It requires complex orchestration across many tools like your HR system, your ITSM system, and provisioning access into various tools. Also, tools like DocuSign to send the contract. Requires a lot of customization due to tenant differences, sometimes on Workday, Oracle, or SAP. It needs guardrails and governance and a lot of security to avoid leaks and the wrong access being given. And that's needed in order to solve the end-to-end problem. And this is where the opportunity arises for SIs. And we've built the platform with SIs in mind as a key partner to our go-to-market strategy. This is actually our fastest growing channel as a company, is working with SI companies that are delivering agents for their customers. So two ways that you can work with Stack One. One is that you can build custom connectors to internal systems that your customers are using, and that's usually one of the first port of calls, like a custom ERP, or they've customized their SAP. But you can also, we see a lot of SIs building IP in the agentic space, like they're building reusable agents that are specific to their domain of expertise, like some agents for finance automation, or some agents for IT automation, or procurement, or supply chain. And you can build the connectivity layer on top of Stack One by building your own custom connectors in there. What makes us different from other platforms that connect into third-party systems on the market is that we are enterprise grade by default. You can deploy us on-prem or in the cloud. We provide high-quality connectors that are heavily QA'd, and we work with our partners to deliver high accuracy and low latency agents. We work today with companies like Synthesia, which have a big, large enterprise customer base, Drata, which is a GRC platform, and Globalization Partners, which is an EOR, to deliver agents that work with their customers' enterprise systems. So if you are, as an SI, building agents for your customers and you need to connect to complex enterprise systems, or you're driving large-scale AI transformation with your clients trying to deploy Gemini Enterprise, and you want to make sure that it connects to all your customers' systems, you can come and talk to us, and we can see how we can work together to accelerate that deployment and hopefully make you successful in doing that. That's it.
Thank you, Romain. In fact, I'll probably pick up on your last sentence that you talked about. So, I mean, we totally understand. I think integration is often the biggest bottleneck that we are kind of looking at, and kind of the cost centers. I mean, with a huge focus, almost all our partners know that there's a huge focus in driving Gemini Enterprise activation and agents deployment. With that background, how does Stack One AI connector build specifically allow SIs to build like proprietary integration with our clients, with their niche legacy systems, while driving Gemini Enterprise activation? Can you give a perspective on that?
Yeah, so at the very basic level, all Stack One connectors, even the ones that you build custom, work interoperate with something like Gemini Enterprise through MCP or native connectors built within those platforms. So for Gemini Enterprise, you can just connect via MCP through Stack One. Stack One handles all the authentication, the actions, the governance layer, etc., so that you can make sure that an agent doesn't have access, for example, to write into a system, only to read, or only very specific actions that you've allowed and customized for that agent. The goal with Gemini Enterprise that we're seeing is you want as many teams as possible to get access to it. The problem is that each team is using a totally different stack. The marketing team is going to want to connect to their CRM, to their marketing automation tools, to potentially data sources, versus a ITSM team is going to want to connect to a totally different, like a ticketing system, etc. And so what Stack One does is help to build a lot of connectors and deploy a lot of connectors that connect in exactly the same way every single time into Gemini Enterprise through MCP. So it's very easy to get set up.
Awesome, great. We have a question on the chat from Sarabjit, and I want to kind of ask that. His question is the approach to pull data from enterprise systems of records into agents within Gemini Enterprise, or use federated approach? So kind of he wanted to give a perspective.
Yeah, it's a very good question. So we, the approach that we solve for is the former, to answer your question. So we help agents to directly go and fetch the data from the underlying systems or from a database in real time. And so the use cases that we power can be things like investigations, or you can't dump all the data off always in a centralized federated data space, or it's complementary with that approach, I should say. We also, within the 10 minutes, I don't have time to talk about every detail, but we also do manage data syncing, manage RAG, so that in some cases you're able to actually do additional actions on top of the data that's not just querying an API.
Awesome.
But pretty good question. And can I answer the second question? I think there's another one too.
Yes, so let me just check. There's a second.
How do we handle edge cases where a target app's data model doesn't map clean into your unified schema? So we don't actually unify connectors by default. There's only very few connectors like the Documents API that we offer that have a unified schema. Actually, we chose the approach to not unify anything so that the agent can access absolutely everything. And like in Salesforce, you can access everything. In Workday, you can access everything. And this is why we don't unify those connectors. We used to have more unified APIs, and we've decided to completely open up the connectors and make them completely customizable so agents can resolve this themselves.
Great. In fact, one of the things that you did talk about, like where it takes a long time for these agents to either connect to a Salesforce or an SAP system or other one. It takes these are like 7-8 months projects. Probably there's an opportunity to reduce that. So as our SIs build these multi-agent solutions for enterprises, I mean, governance is a massive concern. So with your unified permissions API and kind of prompt injection defenses, can you give a perspective of what these project sizes look like when we start using your connectors as compared to kind of going the traditional route?
Yeah, so the main reason that it takes months, or it took months in the previous world, was because you had to reinvent the wheel every single time. Like every data model, every permission schema, role-based access control was different. We've unified this into our permissions API, so you can deliver this within days or weeks rather than months. Specifically building the connectors initially, you don't have to rebuild a whole prompt injection defense strategy. It's just built in. So the scaffolding around the connectors is already there out of the box. Think of Stack One as the infrastructure and the scaffolding that helps you to get your agents out faster when it comes to connectivity, rather than everything pre-built. You can really customize it, and the scaffolding helps you to move faster in getting security approval and high accuracy agents.
Thank you, Romain. You're exactly on time. So really appreciate it. Yeah.
Thanks.
And Stack One is actually the integration layer that is building everything for AI agents. They were actually funded by Workday Ventures and also by Google.
The first video.
I've seen the demo and I'm super excited.
It's okay if you want to give us more time.
So Roman, over to you.
So with that, apologies for that. Now we have our next startup, Thread AI. With that, I wanted to introduce Maya and Anders, and over to both of you and to kick it off.
Thank you so much, and it's great to be here. I, unlike Anders, did not work at Google, but I'm excited to be in good company. So I'm Maya, I'm the CTO and co-founder. I spent around 2 decades building distributed systems across regulated spaces, and more recently, my co-founder and I used to lead AI infrastructure at Palantir before founding Thread AI. At Palantir, we built mostly ML ops, so model training, model inference, and model eval systems, and work closely with various government agencies across defense and healthcare. And our time there, we started noticing how bottlenecks have started to shift. Models started to become more ubiquitous, more available, and cheaper, but enterprises still continued to struggle operationalizing AI meaningfully for a variety of different reasons. Models come with their own different kinds of problems around data quality, and oftentimes to operationalize AI safely, you need a number of moving parts. So we believe fundamentally it's a distributed systems problem and a data movement problem. has been kind of like the inception behind us founding Thread and our flagship product, Lemma. So we've invested in a number of key differentiators that we have high conviction in. So different patterns around human in the loop, and now more recently, where the human is becoming the tool and the AI is orchestrating across humans. But more importantly, our platform comes with a lot of the building blocks that you need to quickly build end-to-end operational AI workflows. So things around multi-tenancy, organization, multi-organization structure, being able to deploy across different kinds of cloud and modalities, and also auth and auth propagation for human and non-human identities. Since our workflows are primarily for mission-critical systems, so oftentimes these are multi-step processes that bring different kinds of personas all in one workflow. So things like invoice processing or other complex workflows, as opposed to simple knowledge work. There's a heavy emphasis on our platform to show auditability and data governance, and a lot of the security requirements that are basically a blocker for enterprises to operationalize AI. So I'll kick it over to Anders.
Awesome. So my name's Anders. I'm a sales lead here at Thread AI. Spent 8 years at Google Cloud before joining the Thread team. A few of our key differentiators. So we find that customers are able to reduce the development time for agentic workflow from months down to days. When you look at the actual development of an AI workflow, the majority of the time we find is not spent like building and designing the business logic of the workflow, but actually like building, deploying, and stitching together all of the kind of different core infrastructure pieces that you need to build those workflows, and that's typically custom per workflow. So with our platform, we basically obfuscate a lot of that infrastructure layer. So your teams, when you deploy these systems, can really just focus on building the value-add business logic versus spending time stitching together infrastructure. So we view our platform kind of very similarly to, like a managed GCP service, where instead of having to manage all that underlying infrastructure, you focus on the value add, which is like building that code, or in this case, that business logic. The second thing is we're super vendor agnostic. Why I think that's important is we found that most customers have had success so far building some like simple AI workflows within like a vertical system. But when you start looking at these really complex, long-running enterprise workflows that might, start in GCP and then pull data from AWS and then have to, update a source in Salesforce and then move that to SAP and then Oracle, and kind of these long multi-system workflows, it can be a ton of expensive, long time investment to actually build those custom workflows, and it doesn't scale. So I'll kind of lead it into like how we view our GSI partnerships. We, at our core, are a software and infrastructure company. We are not looking to kind of like deploy these type of solutions. We want to partner with like top consulting firms to do that for us. And what's great about our platform is it really is infrastructure. So once a GSI deploys this in a customer and builds that initial workflow and kind of wins that success case, they can kind of take that and continuously offer that across different businesses in the organization to build additional workflows. We're very focused on being horizontal and not industry focused. So we provide the underlying infrastructure, but we need strategic partners like GSIs who have a deep understanding of kind of the business and the types of workflows they're trying to build, and bring that expertise to actually design those workflows on top of our platform. Kind of the last piece on the managed services part I'll hit on. Like Maya mentioned, we've invested super heavily in the human in the loop, and we strongly believe that humans will be involved in the majority of these workflows. We found that with GSIs, we can have a really like holistic relationship. When you have clients that are looking for workflows that want to be fully automated, the GSIs can come in and not just take the infrastructure management, but also outsource the human in the loop work that would typically be done by the company, and have that contracted out through the GSI. So we have a lot of flexible deployment models in ways that we think we can drive successful outcomes for clients and also drive really durable revenue for our global solution integrators. Oh, Vic, let me unmute.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Anders and Mira. Really appreciate that. We have a question over here from Jay Kumar. I'll just read it out. You claim to reduce time to production from months to days for governed AI workflows. across distributed enterprise system? What specifically is not handed out of the box today? And in real Fortune 500 deployments, as an SI that we face, where do projects still get stuck? Integration, governance, security, model reliability, or change management?
So a lot of, I guess I would say where things would get stuck is if basically there is no way to connect two systems, but even that we have found ways around. So for example, there's a number of legacy systems. We work with a number of hospitality companies, and a lot of these systems have their data locked in legacy systems where sometimes it is not possible to get API access, whether it is politically or the cost is prohibitive. But in order to unlock that kind of a workflow, our platform has these browser-based components where you can launch headless browser type automations that could sit next to more standard types integrations. So like there are kind of like ways to combat that, but oftentimes things would stall if vendor access is not available, but to that we found ways around that. And that is all represented as part of that same durable workflow. So oftentimes we'll see systems where customers have legacy systems, so moving data from a system that doesn't have an API, but then have Gemini parse through some of the results and then connect to the rest of the downstream system. But yeah, I don't know.
And yeah, I would just add to that. I think it's a great point. I would say the majority of the customers we talk to, this is not their first foray in AI. Typically, a lot of these use cases, they've built like a proof of concept. But the issue comes from like a scale perspective. Like when they're in a confined environment with test data, they can get a lot of stuff to work that they kind of like, might build a Python script or kind of, claw together however they do. But when they start to look at things like authentication and credentialing and actually like scale and like when you have huge amounts of data running through these systems, they often fail. To give you like an example of the types of enterprise considerations we've had, we invested a ton in our like enterprise authentication platform. So we natively integrate into the SCIM providers. So if you're using Okta, Google Groups, or Microsoft Entra, for example, you can dynamically swap credentials based on a workflow. So for example, we have customers who are in a workflow. When Maya runs it, we want to use her credentials to pull, let's say, her Salesforce data. And when I run it, we want to pull my Salesforce data. But downstream, we might want to run or write data to an Oracle system with a system credential. So you can even like be flexible within a workflow, like how you credential. We find those types of kind of edge use cases that typically what slows down development. You can kind of get at a high level, but these really granular issues start to become really big when you talk about deploying an agent to like 100,000 employees at a company.
Awesome, thanks. In fact, one of the things that I talked about is the whole managed services piece. I wanted to kind of allude on that. So as you know, SIs make significant margins on long-term operations, okay? I mean, with Thread AI's composable architecture and natively human in the loop being there, and the human in loop oversight specifically designed. So how will it help kind of SIs land lucrative ongoing managed services and process design contracts after the initial workflow is deployed? Can you give a perspective on that?
Yeah, so I'd say the composability of our platform is really awesome for kind of the consulting and GSI business model. So every time you like import a system into our function registry, that's saved and reusable across workflows. Every time you build a workflow, you can templatize those workflows and then just make edits to them and redeploy them for other use cases. So what we find is like when a GSI comes in and builds those first couple use cases, they can then go to other business units and really quickly deploy additional use cases, and margin should significantly improve because the actual human capital time to build those additional workflows once you already have your systems integrated and all of these like templatized workflows built, your team can kind of go and deploy them much faster than they would having to like build something from scratch.
Yeah, there's a lot of emphasis on reuse and compoundability. So like Anders said, whether it's from our connectors or our individual functions or the workflows themselves, so that you're never repeating work. And you can basically copy and paste very complex workflows from accounting to finance to different, and then swap the different credentials or like permission things so that things that are meant to be reused, they can be reused, and other things can be completely segregated. And I see there's one more question for us.
On our PA.
So yeah, so the main kind of like investment that we've done on our side is we're taking the plugin approach to the platform and the composability approach, because we know fundamentally a lot of the pieces are changing. So the idea is, if you've already made an investment, so part of your business, you're deeply intertwined with an RPA solution or any other solution, you don't have to completely blast what you have. So you can incrementally connect these different systems, so integrate with anything at the protocol level. So whether it's HTTP, gRPC, or GraphQL, we also have FTP. We don't integrate with the different SDKs. So like whenever there's a new version of any other system, it becomes a data change, not a code change. So let's say you already have a system that's represented in one of these RPA systems, and you want to incrementally move it to a more agentic workflow in Lemma, there is a path to do that incrementally. But Lemma can also be used to potentially redo a lot of these workflows. So depending on if you want to keep certain business pieces in particular systems versus not, we handle both deterministic and non-deterministic workflows.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Andres and Maya. Really appreciate that. I think we are on time. So, and then we go to our last presenter. So I wanted to introduce Akash Sharma, who is the CEO of Vellum. And over to you, Akash.
Thank you, Vikram, and thank you everyone for listening to us. Really appreciate you hearing all these pitches, and I know I'm the last. Hopefully what I share is still valuable and interesting to you all. So let's get into it. I'm going to start with a hot take, like a bold take, and I invite criticism, or I invite pushback so that we can have a conversation about this. My bold take is basically inspired by Opus 4.5 and Opus 4.6 earlier this year. As the Anthropic models started getting better, and then GPT 5.4, even Gemini models are demonstrating this, as models have started getting better, I think the broad category of use AI to get things done, which is, again, intentionally a very broad category, is converging. It's like really collapsing into very few products that will accrue a ton of value. I think there will be one or maybe two products left in this category. In my perspective, it'll be a coding agent and a personal assistant. Coding agent is a maybe, because ultimately, you can just have a general purpose personal assistant also handle your coding. And this personal assistant does it all. I've experienced this for myself using our product, and it is truly the biggest experience, biggest AI moment I've had since ChatGPT, which I don't take lightly. We've been in the space for over 3-4 years, so I don't take that statement lightly. But it's actually insane as models are getting better. I've churned off of multiple different SaaS products, including our primary CRM. I no longer use Superhuman. This thing manages my email, Slack, calendar, web browsing. We've churned off of Lovable. It comes with 60+ skills out of the box. It is not a chatbot. It actually does my tasks. And one interesting thing that I want to plant the seed for you guys in terms of the general productivity angle is that there's a whole new paradigm emerging of how humans and AI will kind of interact, and we're leading the charge on that. It's not necessarily this meaningless bot or something that exists that you just give tasks to and it does the thing for you. It's a bit beyond that. The more context each user gives to this assistant or this bot, the assistant gets better and more proactive. So we think that this. So I acknowledge that we're in a very forward-looking space of the industry, but this is where the market is going. And I know there's been board mandates for the last 3 years that, hey, where's the AI adoption? We're spending so much money on AI, we're not getting the results. It's going to get solved, because I just saw the improvement that we at our company and our customers are facing. And this trend is really, really big. In a few minutes, I'll briefly do a demo just to kind of show some basic concepts. But yeah, this new personal assistant trend is big, and we have the dream product to enable that trend. Main differentiators: highly secure, good memory, memory across different team members also. So this can be deployed at scale inside a company, and there's clear context separation between who says what and what actions are permitted to be permitted based on different people asking the bots for different things. It can live in Slack, it can live in Teams. Yeah, there's a lot I can talk about for security and memory. We have over 200 customers. Our most notable logos are Redfin, Swisscom, Headspace, Seeking Alpha, and even a major accounting and consulting firm. So I guess people in the SI industry would know them. I'm keeping it confidential just because we don't have logo rights yet. We raised $25 million. Me and my co-founders are ex-McKinsey, ex-MIT, backed by YC. And yeah, GSI opportunity. This is the, I feel like this is the holy grail of software that companies are looking for extreme productivity improvements, and lots of unsolved problems on how can people get the most value from AI and use like personal assistants at scale. So there's a lot of services revenue that can be added on top of this, and we just don't have the bandwidth or capacity for it. Yeah, I'll pause for a second before doing a brief demo, but like, any questions so far?
I think, Akash, I'll stop presenting. Okay. I think there's one question from Jay. Your pitch depends on persistent memory, real actions across 60 plus tools.
Jay, great question. I think browser use is our biggest challenge. So we keep making browser use better, but ultimately assistants and agents are just better off with CLI and API tasks. So it will take time for, I don't know, United Healthcare or United.com, like just the enterprises out there to have CLI friendly web interfaces. But generally speaking, the internet is not a friendly place for bots, but that must change soon because that's what users would want over time.
In fact, that Jay's question was pretty much in terms of in my thinking too. And like say, as we shift, you talked about the shift in enterprises, they think about AI and the standalone tools to orchestrate agent platforms that need to work across different channels and at the same time maintain the context and integrate with legacy systems. And how do you think Vellum helps SIs with this shift? Any perspectives you have, Akash?
Yeah,
before you get it?
yeah. Maybe I took it from a technical perspective. I think the challenge that we've seen with people adopting like AI tools in larger companies and enterprises, it's like it feels a bit difficult on like how should I use this for my work. Like it's a big challenge around like the user experience and the user interaction on how should this work for my specific workflow, and then like designing a multi-step agent, which we have a separate business line where we have a visual AI builder. So I have deep understanding on that space too. It's kind of like N8N, but AI native N8N, think about it that way. Like having some sort of task specific agents, it's really difficult for people to understand how that might make sense for their use case and how to map out all those integrations. But this new paradigm where personal assistants do the work for you is just much easier for people to get value from AI. And I can show you that through like a quick 1 or 2 examples, because that will help the enterprise adoption, I think, the user experience and the bridge between value. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll stop presenting and then you can take some time to very quickly present. Yeah. Before we get it.
And Leon, I'll just answer your question in a second. Maybe let me just bring this concept to life. I will do like a couple very simple demonstrations. So I just have it connected to my email. This does not have permissions to send email. We can talk about security, but it does not have permissions to send email deterministically, not based on AI security, but like there's code that we've enforced to make sure that that action is not allowed without user approval. But yeah, I just give it a simple prompt, help me unsubscribe. Like super easy. You can just get a table on like what is clogging up my inbox, and I can go as a user, select it, and get my task done. This is like a pretty simple email management task. This can get more and more tailored to my flow as a user on how I want to manage emails. Essentially, that becomes a skill file. So for the SIs out there, you can basically create skills which are relevant for each company. And even SI, like as a company, you can, as an SI, you can have a bank of skills that you bring to your customers, because that's how each individual user's assistants get better and more personalized, because everyone has their own IP in how to define the skills. So under the hood, it's like a skills-based architecture. Another example that I'll show is in Slack, actually. So we have assistants like hanging out in Slack. We have a channel called user feedback. We just dump like raw feedback in here. And one of our assistants, Kite, is just summarizing everything and putting it inside a Notion doc. It just makes life a lot easier for us. This is the classic like PM background grooming task. So yeah, this is a friends and family feedback tracker. It shows up. It's grouped into bugs, feature requests, UX net, onboarding, positive feedback. There's different views. So there's a database that shows up here with links to specific Slack threads, link to linear issues. again, this is like a backlog grooming task, which would take people time to do manually, but deduping it, grouping it by bugs, feature requests, assigning it to teams, all gets done automatically. So this is like clearly the next like highly, it's a big frontier for productivity. And yeah, I just wanted to share 2 simple examples that would make sense to people.
Thank you, Akash. And let me share my screen. And before I complete any final thoughts from you, Gina, I don't want you to put on the spot, but just wanted to kind of get a perspective. Just hold on. Stop sharing.
Yeah, no, just thanking all the folks who joined us. The market is moving so quickly. I think there's no way we're all going to be successful without collectively helping each other along and figuring out how we navigate the landscape together. So thank you everyone for leaning in. We're going to send out the deck and the information for everyone to be able to connect with these folks and these startups. Many of them will be at Next. I encourage you to proactively reach out directly. You don't need the Google folks being in the middle of that. Our goal is just to be a good partner for everyone on all sides and keep people building and developing on Google. So thanks so much for joining us. Vikram, any last words?
No, thank you, everybody. And thanks for all the FSRs for getting the partners, and Kate and Jacqueline for all their support in getting these startups. So looking forward for the next one once Gina asks us to get the next quarterly one. Thank you, Gina.
Cheers, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.
Thanks all.